This is my first video, and I'll begin by covering and reviewing episode 52 called Descent. Overall, this episode is one that I've been looking forward to seeing animated, because no matter how much detail the manga tries to cover, you cannot really experience the narrative completely. Once all the colours are put together, the sounds, the music, the emotions the voice actors put in, you can really feel the tension the author and creator was trying to convey. At the start of the episode, we are taken to the beginning of the series, where we witness one of our beloved characters, Marco, being brutally murdered by his own close friends, Reiner, Bertolt and Annie. For many years, and I suppose especially if you don't read the manga, many have speculated about Marco's untimely and sad death. We know he was at least partially eaten by a titan, and thinking back to that episode in season 1, it was Jean who was perhaps mostly affected by this. He mentions there was no one around to see him go, but also didn't know how Marco found himself in such a position. But now we know the truth about Reiner, Bert and Annie, the very ones responsible for reaping havoc within the walls. We finally see that Marco was not simply accidentally caught by a titan and eaten alive, but rather that Reiner made sure Marco had been put to death because he understood that the conversation they had about breaking the wall was in fact not a joke. For me, and especially as a manga reader, Reiner is a very problematic character. Over the season so far, and especially in the manga, you can see just how mentally affected he is by his actions in breaking down the wall, and it led him to have a split personality in order to cope with the hell he created. And yet he continues to fight for the side who ensured the walls were to be broken in, fulfilling his duty as a warrior to the bitter end, as he openly told himself and the scouts back in season 2. So my problem is that his actions led him to have a mental breakdown, and even though he forced Annie to take Marco's OMD gear from him, sentencing him to death, moments later he witnessed this sentence being carried out and hid his true self by unburdening responsibility from himself. Why is Marco being eaten? Is all who could ask himself in the end. But it was Bertolt who got the main focus in all this. He was never one to take any initiative unless told to do so, usually by Reiner, and we see Bertolt crying, as the rest of the warriors were, over the cruel death of Marco. Again, the anime really shows the raw emotion of these characters and how they are clearly in conflict with themselves. They have a duty to fulfill, and yet it costs them their own consciousness as well as their closest friends. When we focus on Bertolt post time skip on the wall with both Reiner and who we now know is called Zeke, we see that this was a memory Bert was having, whilst looking at the mentally troubled Reiner calmly drinking some coffee. Their conversation on the wall led them to mentioning they simply want to put an end to all this misery. For a very long time, manga readers didn't know what this misery was. Seeing Zeke's expression and knowing what his plan has always been really shows that they are saddened by the cruelty of the world they live in, even if they themselves act cruelly towards others. In their minds, what they are doing is for the greater good, even if it may cause a mental breakdown to say the least. The real action begins when the cart titan lets them know the scouts are on their way. This is the moment Reiner tells Bertolt that he needs to act on his own from this point on, and not be reliant on Reiner all the time. For their plan to work, Bertolt must rise above himself. A very interesting correlation to Armin saying how one must rise above monsters for the sake of humanity. It's apparent both sides are fighting for humanity, but with different perspectives. Bertolt begins to speak differently to what any of us and the characters are used to. He tells Armin plain and simple that no matter what, they must all die. That even though they may have not done anything wrong, just their existence is a problem, and so they ought to be killed off because it's just the way the world is. Armin here clearly doesn't understand a thing Bert is saying because none of it makes any sense, since the Scouts are still clueless about the very world they live in, even engaging in a quick fight with Mikasa before leaving them. Mikasa and Armin can't believe it was Bertolt who pretty much became a different person. And that person is one who accepted his actions and his sins, the murder he created on a large scale, and only views it as a necessary evil for the sake of humanity. He almost felt good about it when talking with Armin briefly. And it's when Bertolt flies off to become the almighty colossal titan that we witness the true devastation of his powers. A massive mid-air nuclear bomb capable of laying waste to anything within reach. Many of the Scouts were wiped out in an instant for simply being too close. By the way, gorgeous shot with Eren and the remaining Scouts witnessing this transformation. We end the episode with Erwin looking on at this unexpected devastation, trapped between Bertolt's monstrosity of a titan and the Beast Titan, who sits calmly watching the whole thing unravel to plan. It's actually really sad that the Scouts have already lost so many of their best soldiers, even Erwin losing his arm. This is a battle of who can outsmart who at this point, because there's no way that Eren, who could hardly take on Rod Reese's abnormal colossal titan, will be able to stand for others who have planned well ahead of time how they will end this once and for all. I really look forward to this Sunday's episode and what the Scouts will do to continue fighting for their victory and their freedom. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it and feel free to comment your thoughts and theories below. If you're interested in story and character development, especially in Attack on Titan, and how it relates to us on a human level, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so you know when my next video is up. I'll see you guys in the next one.